Okie dokie, think we're live. And good morning, everybody. If you're in Australia, Sunday morning here, wherever you are in the world, I hope you are well and happy. Yeah, it's some trying times at the moment, isn't it? And especially in times like this, it is really important to keep ourselves doing what we love and nice and high in our energy. And I think surrounding ourselves with our horses is the perfect place to be. And because there's so many lockdowns at the moment, it's really good to have groups like the one that we have here. To be able to connect with each other, to learn where you normally you may be going to some lessons. Yeah, we're all a little bit not able to do what we normally would do, so it's really good to be able to connect in groups like this. So in saying that, I'm going to lose my voice here. We've had so many new members join over the last week. It's just amazing. I am so excited to meet you all. Welcome to the group. We've got about 60 new members, so that's really, really exciting. I'll talk a little bit about the group for everyone that is new. I'll give you a little bit of a guide around the group so you know what's in it and what it's about. And also I've got a question to answer as well. So just for our new members, this is our weekly Q&A. I usually hop on, it's usually every Australian Eastern Standard Time Sunday. I'm losing my voice again. Excuse me, I've got a little bit of a bit of sinus problems at the moment coming into spring. Doesn't take much, does it? So I have a sip of my coffee. What was I saying? New members, yes. I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what's in the group because there's a guide section and there's some really good articles that'll give you some valuable information on how I retrain, the principles that I use to retrain. So when retrain off the track thoroughbreds, so when I am talking about it, you'll have a more of an understanding of where I'm coming from. Okay, so I'll just wait for anyone who's around who wants to pop on the live, and I've got a question here. So yeah, this is our weekly Q&A. That's what I was saying, losing my track here. So every week I pop in the group live. If you've got a question you want to ask me, just pop it just in, even in the group. If you can't make the live, put a post up. And I will address it for you in our weekly live. If I don't address it for you beforehand, I'm in the group daily. So this group is to support all our members, all the answers, the questions, and the answers that you want when it comes to off the track thoroughbreds, their retraining, some issues you may be struggling with. I'm really there to support you guys. I know there isn't a lot out there, or there hasn't been. There's a lot more support popping up now, but generally off the track thoroughbreds, there hasn't been a lot of information out there on, how to retrain an off the track thoroughbred, why they're different than other horses. I'm just going to move this screen out a little bit because I feel like I'm like a talking head. Is that a little bit better? Yeah, I think so. Just trying to adjust my screen. Yeah, so, and it's a learning group. So I continually put some information up, articles and information on, areas that you need to address with your off the track thoroughbred. So it really is a social learning group. You are also free to post anytime, share your horse. We have some themes that go through the group. And I did have daily themes. I might actually bring those back up for us so that we can have a little bit of fun with following some daily themes. And yeah, look, you're free to post anytime, share your horse. We'd love to meet you and continue to meet you. Any, photos, videos that you have of your off the track thoroughbred, please share away. We want to interact and really get to know each other and meet each other's horses. It's so much fun, especially when we all have that common theme of off the track thoroughbreds. They really are amazing horses. So I'll just wait. And in the meantime, anyone who has seen my videos before, usually I have a dog or two in the videos. So I have 7 dogs, and they're all around me now. It was raining nonstop here yesterday. And so they had a bit of an inside day yesterday. I think they're busting to get outside. It's actually really nice out there today. Very wet though, so it's going to be very boggy out with the horses. But yeah, usually a dog or two pops up into the videos. They're all a bit relaxed. They all got bones yesterday, so they're either asleep or they've got their bone. And I hope they're quiet through our live. Nup, Minnie's going to bark. Hey, Minnie. No. So I just wanted to, for people that don't know me, why learn from me? So I'll give you a little bit of a background on my experience, my history, so that you know what I'm talking about and have a bit of an idea of who I am. So I've worked with horses full time, so every day with horses for the last 23 years. I will reveal my age. I am 52. And I'd actually had a pony beforehand. So I got my pony many, many years ago when I was 12. I was a city girl, actually. So I came from a non-horsey background, got my pony and had him, I had him for over 30 years. Would you believe it? And yeah, God bless him. He was beautiful. But I rode, when I say I rode, I didn't compete or anything when I was younger, but I basically started working full time in the equine industry with horses back when I was, going back to about 29. So what's that, 29? The years get away, don't you? 29, 39, 49, 23 years. Yep. So I started off in riding schools. Minnie, do you want to come and say hello? No. I started off, so I'll just give you a bit of an idea of where I started. So I actually started off, it wasn't in riding school. My first job with horses was in the big Randwick Equine Clinic, the big horse hospital that predominantly worked with racehorses down in Sydney. Now, that was an amazing job. I worked, so the big horse hospital, I just started off as a stable hand cleaning boxes, and wow, as so this was when I was 29. I also was studying horse management at TAFE. So that was my first part of studying. I did the horse management certificate at TAFE, worked in one of the largest horse hospitals. Actually, I think it probably would have been the largest equine horse hospital in Australia. Maybe still is. There's a few around now. And I moved up from stable hand. I then started nursing. So started nursing in the big horse hospital. That was an amazing experience. Predominantly, there were thoroughbred racehorses that we worked with. I absolutely loved it. I worked with the world's best, equine vets there. So it was just a massive. I'll just pick up Minnie. Come on, Min. It was a massive learn. It was just, I learned so much, and it was incredible. Learned how to clean out boxes. Like, when you're working in a horse hospital, these just aren't your normal boxes. You have double straw boxes with mares and foals, and because they're sick or they've had surgery, quite often horses would be on drips. So the boxes were just like, and I was only a skinny little bean back then. They were just, some of them, especially a horse that was on a drip, would be just drenched, soaking, had to dig out the whole lot. And I worked with a little cranky ex-jockey. It was him and myself that did the whole clinic, all the boxes. And he would give me the really hard ones. So mares and foals, so you'd have the double straw boxes. So, I've been there, done there. I've cleaned more boxes than you can imagine over these years. So then what I did is I went and I decided that I wanted to get more into my riding. I had my old horse. He was old, so I was going down and riding him on weekends, but he was just, a little trail riding horse. And I honestly hadn't, I could ride, but I hadn't had any, hadn't really gone out and competed or anything like that. So is my voice here. So I went and got a job in the riding schools down in, if you're in Sydney, Australia, down in Centennial Parklands, in the riding schools down there. And I worked for a lovely, lovely woman. She owned a riding school. She's still yeah, we ended up very good friends. She really took care of me. And I worked full time. And actually, I started there on weekends. So I started there weekends taking out trail rides. If you know Sydney at all, if you're from Sydney, around Centennial Parklands. And that was really good. So instead of getting paid, I worked there getting a riding lesson and part lease of a horse. So that was great. I was starting to get more into my riding. I was having lessons. I had part lease of a horse, so I could play with this. I had my own little horse that I could put attention to. 6 months later, I just was offered a full-time job in the riding school and to manage the actual horse section. So manage the horses, the care of the horses and that. And I also went through my level 1. So I became a coach. So I was teaching a lot of lessons and I was there for, God, I have to go back to the timeline, but at least 4 or 5 years I was teaching in the riding schools. Yes, 5 years. 5 years I was in the riding schools. Teaching there, so I've taught lessons over and over and over again, sometimes 8, 9 lessons a day. Went through my level 1 general coaching. I started competing, so I was out there and I was out doing hunter trials, some eventing, show jumping and dressage. I got my first in that period of time. So actually going back, so I'm going to talk this I've had a long history, so this could be a whole live in itself just talking about my history, but really good to know that you know who you're learning from. I've got the experience and I've also had the struggles. So where was I? That's right. I left the Randwick Equine Vet Clinic as I was offered the full-time job in, it was Superior Horse, which then turned to Centennial Park Riding School, I think she called it. Anyway, Charlotte Inglis, she was my boss. She actually has, she married Arthur Inglis. So you would know if you're a racing person, Inglis bloodstock. Yeah, she married Arthur. They're beautiful people and I love them. So they're very much immersed in the racing side now as well, as Arthur always has been. But I worked at the riding schools for 5 years. I got my first, so one of the clients that I taught, so being, I'll go back to being so passionate about horses and very, always really, like I've always been very passionate about taking care of them really well. I always, just my personality, I like to do things really well. But I would stay back of a night time, and you can imagine the life of a riding school horse is tough. It's really, really hard. I mean, we say that the life of a thoroughbred racehorse is tough, and it is. There's other areas as well, and quite often some of the riding school horses are ex-racehorses. We did have a couple there. And it is just a really hard life for riding school horses. Some of these horses would be going out lesson after lesson, and so what I would do is I would stay back of an evening and take them all out individually, or if I had someone there, and this was a client, a little girl that I used to teach, who would stay back and help me and give them a nice big run in the bottom arena, because they were stable 24/7 being in Centennial Park in the equestrian centre down there. So yeah, I spent a lot of time nurturing these horses and letting them have a run down in the bottom arena and that. And a little girl that I taught, her dad, they owned a racehorse, and and just get some little Auntie here. I had part lease of a horse, and I was getting attached to these certain horses, and to come from where I came from. So this is sort of just a little bit about, I didn't have the money. So I didn't have the money to buy a horse. I did really like some horses, and then a horse that I got really attached to, he was sort of, I said, could I pay him off? And then he was bought out from underneath me. And yeah, it was, I felt like I was, on my own, and I was never going to be able to get a horse, and people with more money, I was a bit sad that the horse that I wanted was bought out underneath me. But anyway, everything always works out for a reason, doesn't it? So I think this little girl, it was a long time ago, Alana, and her dad would stay back and help me put Saturday night, stay back. And anyway, he said, I've got a racehorse. He said, you can get a much better horse than the one you're looking at. He said, you can have our horse when he retires from racing. And I was so excited. I thought, wow, he said, he's much better than the horse that you were wanting. So to cut a long story short there, he retired early. This horse, he was supposed to race for a lot longer, but as racing is, the trainer got caught out, especially back then, though it still happens. He got caught out for giving steroids to his horses and was banned. And my moto came to me earlier than he was planned to. So that was really exciting. So he was my first off the track thoroughbred. I have to go back. I wish, nowadays you have to look at the diet, but that would have been 22 years ago, 21 years ago, I got moto. And he was beautiful. Interesting, he was very hot. So with thoroughbred racehorses, you can get all different types of, they're not all, like revved up and hot and jumping off the walls and things like that. Sometimes they can be very shut down. They can be doughy. They can be very placid. Genetics has part of it as well. So certain breeds are known to be more hyperreactive, more hot. My moto, he also came from a trainer that did the wrong thing. So he was what they call zapped, zapped on the neck with some electric device. Not good, but you can imagine it terrifies the shit out of them. And really, they're running on fear when they're done like that. It is illegal in racing, and they are banned. And he was banned not for that particular time, but he got banned for it before. He got banned this time for giving steroids to his horses. But Moto was a very hot. He's 16 hands. He was all brown, I should say, and very hot. And I had no brakes, and he was the type of thoroughbred where you couldn't put your leg on him and he would shoot forward. And so that they're actually harder to work with, thoroughbreds that are really hyperreactive and jig-joggy and rushy than a horse that is, or an off-the-track thoroughbred that is doughy and a little bit dull to the aids. I had no experience, and it's interesting because this is before I even worked in the racing industry. I knew I got an off-the-track thoroughbred, but it's funny looking back now, I don't know. And I remember going to the stable, and my boss, Charlotte, and she came out and she rode him out there. It was a track out. He had his own track out, this particular trainer. And she rode him around. It was all good. We got him. I gave him a spell, took him into the equestrian center, and it's really important to give a thoroughbred racehorse straight out of racing let down time. Give them a spell. I like to give them at least 6 months. It's quite often a year if they have tended. Well, definitely if they've come out with an injury and things like that, they might need a year. But he went out for a spell, came back, and I didn't even know. I just remember looking back now and think, it didn't even hit me that an off-the-track thoroughbred is different than any other horse, that his the way of life and what he's been trained for, and that is different than your show jumper or your equestrian or the riding school horses or anything like that. It sort of didn't really, I didn't think about it. I had not really knowing. Now, 23 years later or 22 years later, and working with racehorses for 17 and a half years in the industry, I've learned a lot. But I had my issues. I had so many issues. I couldn't put my leg on him. He was very tense, this jig-joggy, and leaned and pulled, and he was just beautiful. But as time went on, I started to get really disheartened. I started to, I couldn't get him to relax. I never could get him to relax. And I mean, honestly, I struggled for years and years. I think I struggled for 10 years with him. Even when I was working in racing, because I mean, it takes a long time to learn. I mean, even when I started working in racing, it's just, life experience. But I really, really struggled with him. I got very disheartened. I was nowhere near as confident as I am now. I didn't obviously have the experience that I have now. I loved him dearly. He was so beautiful. And at the same time, about a year later, I got another horse, Toby. He was completely opposite. Now, he was a thoroughbred cross stock horse. Now, he was completely opposite. So he was completely shut down. He was a very stressed horse because he was abused. He was a horse that was pulled in tight to a frame at a very young age, wouldn't go forward. I got him, he was bought for, I think they bought him for $6,000. I got him for $1,000 because he had what they call a bridle lameness. And he was a big 17-hand chestnut. When they're not allowed to go forward and they're jammed up, they can get what they call a bridle lameness. So it's not anything physically wrong with them, but they haven't been allowed to move freely, so they look lame. So my first two horses were Moto, my Off The Track Thoroughbred, and Toby. I'm just going to put my little heater on here. Toby, who was a Thoroughbred cross stock horse, who was bred for show jumping. Beautiful. But he had some issues. He would grind his teeth. He was an opposite to Moto in that he was sort of shut down and everything was contained inside him, and he was tense, but he wouldn't go forward. So I had two completely different types of horses to work with, and I had them both for 18 and 20 years. And I lost them both, Moto in 2016 and Toby in 2017. So I had both my horses for a long time and learned a massive amount from these two horses and then the many more that I've had and still have. I sort of increased my herd, the team of horses. So I've got so much to say about my experience in history, but that gives you an idea. So basically, with my two horses, I did struggle big time. I just didn't have this easy flow where, oh, it's good, they're nice and relaxed, and it was frustrating because I would have show jumping lessons with Moto, and my instructors would get on and they would have him go around nice and well, I don't know if it was, look back now, I think he was overbent, but back then I thought, oh, they're going around, he's nice and in a frame and going around, and I get on and his head's up in the air, he's tense and he's jig jogging the whole time. And I mean, that went on for years. And I just back then didn't have the coaches that could tell me, like, they but I don't know. Look, back then I think he would have been overbent, but they didn't have they didn't teach what I know now to be able to achieve the softness and the relaxation. They didn't explain. So, quite often you'll see coaches get on, but they can do it, but they don't know how to explain it well in words. It's hard, they don't know, say, just do this and do that. So they might say, just have more forward or more leg and this and that. And it's like, oh my God, what do you mean by more forward? Or a big one is rounder. Now this is, I'm going to say this is old school, because I would never say to someone, get your horse rounder and rounder. But a lot of that rounder and and what I did, it just increasingly increased more stress in my horses, more frustration in me. And yeah, basically I'm going to say that I went through years and years of struggle with my two horses. And I did achieve, though. I was out eventing, show jumping, and it did start to come together. So parallel with this, as I started working in racing back in 2004, I was still working in the riding schools part-time, but I started with one of the prominent trainers, Gay Waterhouse, down in Sydney. I learnt to ride track work there, which was the most terrifying experience of my life. I just wanted to change from teaching in riding schools, and I wanted a job where I could, I love riding, and I wanted a job that I could have my days free as well to put into my horses and that. So first full-time job in racing back in 2004, Gay Waterhouse, and I have to say, learning to ride track work was the most terrifying experience that I've ever done. It was just crazy. I look back now and I'm like, just wow. And I was just determined. I was so determined. But I would be put on, and I love Gay. Gay Waterhouse was great. She was really good with me. But I was skinny once again. I was this skinny little bean. I used to be very fit and swim, so the first day that I worked for Gay Waterhouse was the last day I ever set foot in a gym again. And I used to swim 3Ks and run 10, 20Ks and that. So riding track work is beyond any physical thing that you could ever do. I tripled in size in my muscles in my shoulders a year after doing pace work and gallops. But I was determined to learn to ride track work, and I saw a Randwick racecourse out of control so many times. I mean, it was just terrifying. And you would, different trainers have different ways of, teaching riders to, teaching track work riders. Gay would put you on the more experienced horses that have raced. So they know how to run and they know how to pull. If they put you on a young horse, they haven't raced, they don't really know how to grab the bit as much. But you would just go out there, and there was a rider there that was taking out. There was another girl and myself that were learning to ride track work, and they would just say, he would say, all you need to do is get over their neck and twist your wrists. So I'd be out there, and as soon as a racehorse sees a sand track, they know what they're out there for. You've got the slow track and you've got the fast track, and Randwick Racecourse is just like, Sydney compared to the country tracks that I ride in now and have ridden in. And as soon as you'd come onto the sand track, he said, get up over their neck, twist your wrists. And I was like, gone. And friggin' terrifying. Like, even now, nearly 18 years later of riding track work, having a horse bolt on you is just not fun. I'm amazed when I hear track work riders that say they've never had a horse bolt on them. I'm like, how? And you haven't ridden the amount of horses I've ridden, I suppose. That would be one of them, because the more horses that you ride, the more things are going to happen. But yeah, I had the clerk of the course there, so I had a couple of people take me under their wing, very experienced horse people. The clerk of the course there, I'd go and he put me on the clerk of the course horses after track work, and teach me the skills. Gay's was really, I really liked the fact that at Gay we just trotted, being such a big stable and having jockeys and her track work riders, you would just trot in and out all morning, so you were getting really fit. So I'd trot the horses into the tower at Randwick and back out and in and out all morning, so you would start to get fit and used to being on the back of a racehorse. So that was my the beginning of working in the racing industry. And I was still teaching in riding schools, so I was actually only working at Gays of a morning and teaching in the riding schools of a daytime, and my own two horses. Basically, that was the beginning of my working in racing. So 2004. So what are we? That was, how long ago was that? 2004, 2014, 2004 to 14 to 24. What is it? 17 and a half years ago. I was a year at Gay Waterhouses for a year. I then moved up to the Central Coast with a partner that I met, rode for Albert Stapleford, worked full-time for him. So once again, riding track work. It's when I first started doing pacework and gallops up on the Central Coast, Gosford. Worked for a couple of years, and then I went freelance as a track work rider. So freelance as a track work rider is where you go into a race course of a morning and you will go around to all different trainers, ride 4 for one trainer, 5 for another trainer, and do that, and sometimes even go to, once I rode at race course, I would go out to private tracks and ride out there. So I did that for I moved to freelance after about 2 years of working with Albert Stapleford. So you would say for about the last 15 years I've ridden freelance track work. So I know racehorses. I've ridden, what would you call it, thousands? I don't know. How many times have I ridden a racehorse? I suppose thousands. You look at over 17 years. I rode 10 to 12 to 15 horses a morning. I'm semi-retired track work rider now. I've had injuries. I've ridden all different types of horses. I've had racehorses flip over on me. I've broken my foot. I've had 2 shoulder surgeries. These are all from track work accidents. I've had fractured my spine. I've had bleeding on the brain. I've had more bruises than you can imagine. I split my lip and had to have 6 stitches in my lip. What else have I done? I fractured 4 ribs, but that wasn't a track work accident. That was a horse at home, and he wasn't a racehorse actually. What else have I done? I'm sure I've had more injuries than that. I've got broken fingers and so many injuries. It's just, it's you know, but I love it. Absolutely love it. Over the years, so what I've also too, so I know this is going to be a long live, and but throughout my years of working in racing, I also set up my own racehorse spelling business. So up on the Central Coast, I set up my own racehorse spelling business, and I did that for 4 years. So I had 17, 18 horses off the thoroughbred racehorses in my care at a time. So racehorses in they go out for a spell in between their preps. So I'll give you an example. A racehorse may be in for a prep for 6 starts or something. You might go for three, 4. Could even be 5 months. That's quite long. But 3 months, and then go out for a spell for 6 to 8 weeks, and then they come back in. So my job was to actually, I had them when they were out for a spell, and that was once again a great experience because of having to, you've got to keep them in condition. You get quite young horses, so the way that you feed a thoroughbred racehorse when they come out for a spell. They were in their individual paddocks. You don't put them in herds, so a thoroughbred racehorse is always individually paddocked or stabled on that. You don't want them to get injured. They're very expensive, and that was really wonderful. Yeah, I had Sincero, who was a Group 1 horse out there with me. So yeah, I loved that. And once again, I was still riding track work, and I did a lot of strapping at the races as well. So I probably would strap three times a week at the races. Strapping is when you will take a horse to the races, and you prepare them to go out there racing. The trainer, you help saddle up, lead them around the enclosure. So those people that you see lead the horses around the enclosure are called strappers. So I've done many, many years of strapping. So that's another experience. As I said, I've worked in stables, so I've cleaned thousands of times. I've cleaned boxes, hosing racehorses, everything you could do. I also pre-trained as well. So when I had my spelling business, I pre-trained. So what pre-training is quite often trainers will send their racehorse to a pre-trainer to put the slow work into them. Get them fit, and then when they go into the trainer, they're ready to go up and do their pace work. So pace work is fast work. So it's basically your galloping type of work. Pace work is you actually go by seconds. So as when you go out as a track work rider, you have a half pace, 3/4, a working gallop, and a gallop. So they're all certain speeds of a gallop that you do. But yeah, your slow work, what you do is build up in your slow work to get the racehorse fit for your pace work. So I did all of that. Where am I up to in my life? Over the time, so I was out also to eventing and show jumping and that. When I had my racehorse spelling business, I tended to I started increasing my horses. I still had Moto and Toby. Starting to get there. I also too backtrack. Oh my God, I'm so sorry guys. This is such a long video of me. But I did so backtrack. Before I started working in racing, I went down and spent a year at the Australian Equine Behaviour Centre. So this is just before I worked in racing. I went and spent a year in Victoria at the Australian Equine Behaviour Centre with Andrew McLean, and this is where I learnt Equitation Science and Equitation Science Principles. It was an incredible experience. I was down there when he was writing his first, one of his second book, I think it is, The Truth About Horses, and my Toby is in there. So I went down there. I took both Moto and Toby, my horses, down there. Competed down there in eventing and dressage. Eventing and dressage I was competing at. Moto, my Off The Track Thoroughbred, was my eventer, and Toby, my big chestnut, was my dressage horse. Also did quite a lot of show jumping with Toby as well in the later years, quite successfully. So we worked through, I got him through his issues, stress and tension and grinding teeth and that. So yeah, I did work through both issues with both my horses eventually, but I do know what the struggle's like, that's for sure. So going back to my year down with Andrew McLean, so that was the beginning of the way that I retrain now and learning and practicing equitation science. So that's another sort of story in itself, but I just needed to track back then to give you an idea of, which is, I think is very important, to have that valuable time of a year down spending with Andrew McLean and his wife Manuela and his son Warwick McLean, and back then little Sophie was a little ankle biter back then, because now I'm currently doing the Equitation Science Diploma. But yeah, so that was a big that's a big thing I need to mention, just so you know what I'm speaking about and have had the experience. Training through in eventing and dressage with Andrew and Manuela was wonderful. Did all the clinics down there, so they would have all workshops quite often, every 6-7 workshops, so I continually sat through and learnt workshops, sat in the workshops, so that was great. Going back to, God, where am I up to in my life? Just then my spelling business sort of overtook. I sort of took a step back from competing, because having the spelling business and taking care of so many, having so many horses to take care of. Basically, I moved, still competed a bit, but it was more thoroughbred racehorses. So I predominantly worked with thoroughbred racehorses, and taking them in and retraining them over these years. So I've took in many clients' horses to retrain. If you go to my page, I have some testimonials on there just to see. I did take in Off The Track Thoroughbreds to retrain and move on. I don't do that anymore. Very stressful. I get very attached to them and I worry about where they go. Hence the reason I have 19 of my own horses now. Yes, I have 19 horses. 17 Off The Track Thoroughbreds, a riding pony, and a solid colour black paint horse, toothless. If you go to my Facebook page, you can meet my horses there. And I very passionate about, so I've moved, I'm very, over the years, and also as you learn more and study more, the welfare issues in racing, a lot of welfare issues in racing, and becoming a lot more aware of ethical training. So equitation science is very much based on ethical training that prioritizes the welfare of the horse. I think, as everybody knows, I think everybody sort of knows there's welfare issues in racing, and throughout my years, and as my experience grew, you see them all the time. And I've become very passionate about that. I've always stand up for it, and it's actually incorporated in the way that I retrain Off The Track Thoroughbreds, because I know what they've been through. Not all of them, but some of them. Why they have issues, and why they need retraining, just for the fact that they're trained in a completely different way than your equestrian horse. But also too, they come out of a very highly demanding industry. A lot of pressure is put on them physically and mentally, and horses, basically, they are a prey animal. They are an animal that their first reaction is to run and fear, and they do express fear a lot in racing because of the pressure that's put on them, and this is going to come out in behaviour, in conflict behaviours. I didn't. Little recess break. There's Minnie. There's my little Minnie Mouse rescue puppy. I rescued everything. Hey. Well, everything was 4 legs. My little Minnie, she wanted to sit on my lap. Say hello. Minnie I found on the streets. She was skin and bone. She wasn't microchipped. No one wanted her. That was a long time ago, wasn't it? Okay. Big focus of mine is I still ride track work. I've actually I started my retraining business. I probably started, not being the most tech savvy person 10 years ago. I would say that, I started bringing in and retraining Off The Track Thoroughbreds, setting up your Facebook page and that, and becoming more digitally savvy, social media and everything. I don't know how long have I had my page up, about 6 years, I think. A bit of a learning curve for me, all this social media. things, being a very physical, physically retraining and all of that, teaching, transferring it over to digital, and that is been a big learning curve. But so I'll look back at the last sort of 10 years, even more, well, since I had my spelling business, just predominantly more racehorses, and increasingly, growing and understanding the welfare issues, how to retrain them effectively so that they are, and keeping their welfare in mind so that they are successful in a life after racing. Because quite often, off the track thoroughbreds, we're retrained all the time, but is it the right way? Quite often not. So I will, I just feel, I know for myself, having such such a in-depth and deep understanding of the thoroughbred racehorse, I feel like that is such a, I feel really grateful for that, to have that, because it makes such a difference in how I approach my retraining. I absolutely love thoroughbred racehorses. I'm so passionate about them. I just think they're the most amazing horses, and they're quite often misunderstood. And that really upsets me, and hence the reason that I'm really passionate about off the track thoroughbred welfare and retraining them, ethically, and so that they're successful, and so you guys can have success with them. I'm just trying to think where I'm up to in my little timeline. Now where I am today, so I'm still riding track work, recently come back from another year, but I'm only riding a few. I am getting back, so I retrain. So I actually retrain off the track thoroughbreds for clients still. Don't take a lot in. My priority is retraining and getting out and competing again, getting back and out eventing, show jumping, dressage on my own team of horses, and sharing the journeys of those horses and where they are from coming out of racing all through is my focus now, and being able to share that with you guys, and so that you can learn how to take your off the track thoroughbred on the same path and do whatever goals that you have, you would like to do. I'm enjoying going back into the equestrian disciplines and getting out there and having fun on my own horses and competing. So that's where I am at the moment. I'm very passionate about retraining off the track thoroughbreds, and there for you guys. I know that it can be in other groups, you will quite often put up a question and you get like 10 or more different answers, and that can be confusing in itself. So the reason I've set this group up is so that I'm in the group all the time. I have learning material in the group. I also have an online course, and I am going to be launching a program again in the very near future, if you're interested in that. I do my weekly Q&As. So have somewhere so that we have a common theme with the group, so that you're getting information from it. So basically this group is based on Equitation Science Principles, but also bring in classical dressage and everything. It's very holistic, your diet, your nutrition, your feet, all of that. And I'd like to put as much information in the group as I can, so that you have you have some information to go there and reach out, go back and read if you're wanting to follow up on a particular topic. That's going to keep growing. So I've probably talked enough about me and my history. Will just say that I now have, I think I mentioned that, my herd of 19 horses, 17 off the track thoroughbreds, and my riding pony, and Toothless, the paint horse. I'm very passionate about, as I said, the equine welfare of off the track thoroughbreds, generally all horses, but my forte is off the track thoroughbreds. So I have 3 off the track thoroughbreds, or 2 off the track thoroughbreds that have been rescued from the meets, from the slaughter, and Toothless, he's a paint horse, but he was rescued as well. So I've also got some horses that were going to be sent to slaughter, or been rescued from slaughter just out of racing, or been rehomed and then ended up in dire situations. So they've come to me. So very much into the equine welfare and improving equine welfare in the racing industry. So I think that's probably a really good I'm currently also doing the diploma of Equitation Science, so that's where I'm at as well. Spoke for about 45 minutes about me, but yeah, look, at least you have a really good idea that why learn from me, because I have the experience and I've been there. I've had success with my my horses, show jumping, dressage. I have successfully retrained many off the track thoroughbreds for clients, and obviously my own horses. Yeah, and I'm very I retrain where I put the welfare and the priority of the horse as first, and also I retrain on a holistic basis. So you need to realize that thoroughbred racehorses have come from a completely different industry than your general than a normal general horse. Their body is put under a lot of pressure. They work differently. They use their muscles differently, and so that takes time and a process to be able to rehabilitate and retrain them to be suitable for, you know, your pleasure horse, to become a pleasure horse or an equestrian show jumper or an eventer or whatever you would like. I think I've talked a lot about that. I do have a question, and I'll quickly answer that for Beth. Hey, Beth, I know I'm answering your question way back at the end here, but Beth had a question talking about the gears. So what off the track thoroughbreds wear? The saddles, bridles, bits, breastplates, boots, saddle cloths, what they're ridden in during track work and racing, what gear they've been used to wearing, and what gear they may have never come across in the life off the track. Okay, big, heavy Western saddles, even dressage saddles. Thoroughbred racehorses are in what we call a track pad, an exercise saddle. So they're not ridden in your normal heavy saddle, but, you know, obviously when they're first broken in, they're generally ridden in a stock saddle. But after that, they're never, you know, unless they're a really difficult horse. I've even seen thoroughbred racehorses broken in, or now that we don't call it broken in anymore, but educated under saddle in a track pad, in an exercise saddle. So they don't get ridden in heavy saddles. They are ridden in a very light exercise saddle. When they're racing, the jockey pad is just tiny. So they're used to having a very light saddle on their back. Yeah, they're used to breastplates quite often, and most of the time a track work exercise saddle will have a breastplate to stop the saddle from slipping back. They quite often are used to running reins. You will see running reins on thoroughbred racehorses. They don't, so side reins, you don't see racehorses inside. I don't like side reins or any of those artificial aids where you're holding the horse's head in. You will see the odd trainer put running reins and that on horses. I personally don't like that. It's not a common thing that you see in racing. So the gear that they're used to, just have a look. Breastplates, bridles, just your normal bridle. What we do quite often, you will what we call a ring bit, a lugging bit. So that's a combination of a snaffle bit, but then you have the ring through it. It's like a rearing bit. That just gives us as track work riders more control. Look, thoroughbred racehorses, they're trained to run, they're trained to gallop, they're trained to lean into the bit. So completely opposite that you want in an equestrian horse, hence the importance of retraining. And the ring bit, because, you know, when they're galloping, you know, it takes quite a while to pull them up. And they do habituate to quite a lot of bit pressure. So that ring is part of the lugging bit, or sometimes they're called a tri-bit. Some of the different ones are tri-bits. It just gives you that extra control, stops the bit from slipping through their mouth when we have to put excess pressure on their mouth, unfortunately. Yeah, helps with turning, you know, turning them left and right, because they do habituate to a lot of bit pressure. And that's part of the retraining process to get them light and in self-carriage. Boots, racehorses do wear boots. You don't, bandages and boots, you do see them. You don't see them all the time. More than often they're not booted up, but they are some racehorses do go out and exercise bandages. you know, your bits, once again, your lugging bit, your rearing bit, your snaffle bit. And talking about that, they have habituated to a lot of pressure on the bit. So we want to retrain them to become light in the mouth. What else? What else? So your track work pad, it's pretty basic. You know, you get blinkers, blinkers. Okay, so they'll often have earmuffs on. They and I'm not saying all horses. So just because you've got an off the track thoroughbred, don't presume that they're used to blinkers or earmuffs or something like that. But blinkers and earmuffs or pacifiers, which are like that meshy type of thing that are put over their eyes. So they're quite often seen in racing. You do have, and I'm sure you've heard of it, tongue ties. I don't like tongue ties. I think that whole issue with the tongue thing is a training problem. But they are used often to stop the horse getting their mouth, their tongue over the bit, or sucking it back and restricting their breathing. The whole tongue tie thing is a story in itself. I don't like them, and I think that the whole tongue issue is there's a cause for that, and it comes down to training and education. But tongue ties you will see put around their jaw, so one loop with a band or a stocking is put around their tongue, and then it's looped over to their jaw to keep their tongue forward and down, instead of them pulling their tongue up and back. So yeah, so that's something that is in racing. They're used to whips, but unfortunately the whip is seen as a negative. You know, when the whip is used, it's a training tool. You know, I only ever use the whip as a tap on the shoulder. Even with racehorses, I'm going to say that I have, in my 17 and a half years of riding track work, never ever pulled a whip on a racehorse. Never. I've always been a hands and heel rider in gallops, never pulled a whip on a racehorse. I have, I'll give them a tap on the shoulder to, or if they're being naughty, to reinforce my aids, a tap on the shoulder. But unfortunately, the whip in racing is used quite aggressively. You see it in racing all the time. So a racehorse's an off-the-track thoroughbred will quite often respond to lunging whips and whips in general with fear. So that needs to be retrained as well. Retraining the association of the whip from a punishing tool to what they is to be used as just a reinforcer of your hand. So little tap, with just an example, you're teaching your horse to off the track thoroughbred to go forward from a light leg aid. You use a little nudge with your legs, they probably won't respond. A bigger nudge with your legs, and a reinforcer is a little tap with your whip, and as soon as they go forward, you stop. The whip is never to be used as a punishing tool. It's never to be used as harshly. It's just a little tap, 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 tap. But that's part of the training process, and actually even retraining your off the track thoroughbred to associate the whip as a positive, as not a fear tool, I would say, is an important part. I think that's it. Have I talked about that? Let me know. I'm trying to think more gear things. What else are they used to? Obviously, your head collar, rearing bits, rugs. They're rugged and unrugged and all of that. But once again, on-rugged, rugged and unrugged and things like that. I've done a live on that. Yeah, I think I've covered the with the bits. Sometimes you'll see Norton bits used they're quite an aggressive bit. Don't like that. You might see the gag bit used in racing sometimes for a horse that pulls really hard. Yeah, so generally your ring bits are used or snaffle bits, but you will see other types of bits, such as Norton bits and a gag bit used. Nose bands, sometimes you'll, excuse me, you'll see crossover, your crossover nose bands, sometimes used. Yeah, actually, I don't have any horse that I'm riding track work at the moment that has any nose band or anything like that. They're just all ridden in a lugging bit. Um, yeah, okay, I think I've covered that. Anyway, that's a bit of a bio on me, this live, really, isn't it? So I'll put a little heading if you want to know about me and all of that. At least you can come back here and listen to an hour of me talking. If you got nothing else to do. I once again welcoming all our new members in the group. I will pop up a post and give you an idea of what's in the group. I will also let you know I have some online programs. One is going to be available, launched soon in the near future. I'll let you know about that. And yeah, I think that's it for today's live. I hope everyone has a lovely day or evening wherever you are. Please introduce yourself in the group. If you have any questions, just pop up a post in the group anytime, and I'm always in the group. I will come, I'll find as soon as, give me, I'll always answer it. So just give me a little bit of time to get there and answer it for you. I have so many horses, they keep me quite busy. So it may take a little bit of time to get to you, but I'll definitely get to your question. And I will see you in the group. Okay, bye.